Gopijana Vallabha Grivadari Jaya Grivadari. Yasodanandana Prahladananda Ranjana Jaya Prahladananda Ranjana. Yasodanandana Prahladananda Ranjana Jaya Prahladananda Ranjana. Yamunadiravarachari Jaya Kunja Vihari. Yamunadiravarachari Jaya Kunja Vihari. Yamunadiravarachari Jaya Kunja Vihari. Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari. Gopijana Vallabha Grivadari Jaya Grivadari. Gopijana Vallabha Grivadari Jaya Grivadari. Yasodanandana Prahladananda Ranjana Jaya Prahladananda Ranjana. Yasodanandana Prahladananda Jaya Prahladananda. Yamunadira Varachari Jaya Kunja Bihari. Yamunadira Varachari Jaya Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvadakacharya Asadhara Satushi Shriman His Divine Grace Shalasi Bhakti Smaraj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande to all glorious to the sound devotees, all glorious to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Agyanativanandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksuram Lalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Gadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Sakans Vitams Cha Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishubhanu Sudha Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Canto 3, Chapter 6, Creation of the Universal Form, text number 32. Vishovartanta tasyorvor lokavriti karir vibo vaishas tad ud bhavo vartam narinam yak sama vartayat Visho vartanta tasyorvor lokavriti karir vibo vaishas tad udbhavo vartam Rinam yak samavartaya. So tata achavor lokavriti karir vibo vaishas tad udbhavo vartam Rinam yak samavartayat Visho vartanta tasyorvor lokavriti karir vibo vaishas tad ubhavo vartam Rinam yak samavartayat Visho vartata tasyavor lokavriti karera vibo vaishastadu bhavo vartam rinam yak samavartayat. Ladies, Visha vartanta tasyavor lokavriti karera vibo vaishastadu bhavo vartam Rinam yak samavartayat Visho vartanta tasyavor lokavriti karera vibo vaishastadu bhavo vartam Rinam yak samavartayat. Visha, means of living by production and distribution. Avartanta, generated. Tasya, his, the gigantic forms. Urvo, from the thighs. Loka vriti kari, means of livelihood. Vibo, of the Lord. Vaishya, the mercantile community. Tat, there. Udbhava, orientation. Vartam, means of living. Rinam, of all men. Ya, one who. Samavartayat, executed. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The means of livelihood of all persons, namely production of grains and their distribution to the prajas, was generated from the thighs of the Lord's gigantic form. The mercantile men who take charge of such execution are called Vaishyas. Purport. Human society's means of living is clearly mentioned here as Visha. you've heard Vishaya Vinivartante. Vishaya, is it Parama Karuna Paudvijana, Nityai Gaurachandra, Savavatar, Sarashiramani, Kevala Anandakanda, Bhaja Bhaja Vai, Chaitanya Nitai, Vishaya Drida Vishvasekore, Vishaya Charya, Serasa Majiya, Mukhe Bolo Hari. So Vishaya generally means gratifying the senses. So Visha means the agriculture and the business of distributing agricultural products which involve transport, banking, etc. Industry is an artificial means of livelihood. And large-scale industry especially is the source of all the problems of society. Everyone get that? What's the cause of all our problems? Yes, so we cause all of the problems. Of course, there are many things that get involved in all the problems, not only the industry, but industry is a symptom of the problem, as we'll find out. In Bhagavad Gita also, the duties of the Vaishyas who are engaged in Visha are stated as cow protection, agriculture, and business. We have already discussed that the human being can safely depend on the cow and agricultural land for his livelihood. The exchange of produce by banking and transportation is a branch of this type of living. The Vaishyas are divided into many subsections. Some of them are called Kshetri, or landholders, owners. Some are called Karshana, or land tillers. Some of them are called Tilak Vanik, or grain raisers. Some of them are called Ganda Vanik, or merchants in spices. And some are called Suvarna Vanik, or merchants in gold and banking. The Brahmins are the teachers and spiritual masters. The Kshatriyas protect the citizens from the hands of thieves and miscreants, and the Vaishyas are in charge of production and distribution. The Shudras, the unintelligent class, cannot act independently, and any of the above-mentioned activities are meant for serving the three higher classes for their livelihood. Formerly, the Brahmins were given all the necessities of life by the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas because they had no time to spend making a living. The Kshatriyas would collect taxes from the Vaishyas and Shudras, but the Brahmins were exempt from paying income tax or land revenue. That system of human society was so nice that there were no political, social, and economic upheavals. The different castes or varna classifications were therefore essential for maintaining peaceful human society. Visho Vartanta Tasya Yorvur Loka Vriti Karir Vibho Vaishyastad Udbhavo Vartam Rinam Yak Samavartayat. The means of livelihood of all persons, namely production of grains and their distribution to the praj, was generated from the thighs of the Lord's gigantic form. The mercantile men who take charge of such execution are called Vaishyas. Namo Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Sarasvatundeve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paskatya De Satarane. Modern society has become divorced from reality. Not completely, because it's impossible to become completely divorced from reality. But the priorities of modern society have become distorted. As Krishna says, as it explains here, Anad Bhavati Bhutani Parjana Anasambhava. That all of the entities, they subsist on food grains, so that's the first thing. Now, where food grains come from, that may be another thing, but at least the priority of food grains has to be seen as necessity. Unless one is Raghunath Das Goswami and can live on a little pat of buttermilk every other day, then one has to consider about food grains. Now Krishna says, Anad bhavati bhutani parjana ana sambhava. That food grains come from rain. Of course, according to modern conception, so-called modern conception, according to ignorance, rain comes out of nowhere, just how happens. Or they claim nowadays that climate change is due to the increase of CO2. As though they've declared, in Europe at least, that the major offender, the major species of life who produce CO2 and therefore threatening humanity is the cow. They claim the cows are passing too much gas, and that's threatening the environment. So the solution to protect our environment is kill all the cows. Sounds familiar? They have no idea what climate change is due to the fact that there's no sacrifice in Kali Yuga. Everything is distorted. Because of the no sacrifice, therefore the demigods, just like Indra, he reciprocated with the residents of Vrindavan by sending ati drishti, too much rain. As Indra can also provide alpa drishti, not enough rain. In other words, too much, too little is a symptom of the fact that the demigods are punishing the conditioned souls in Kali Yuga. It is not because the cows are passing too much gas. Otherwise, then they'll start saying the old people are also passing too much gas. We have to get rid of them. Children pass too much gas. In other words, give the dog a bad name and then you hang it. Because they don't know how the material world works. Therefore, they come up with any kind of nonsense theory in order to suit their particular agenda. They don't, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Utkramantam sitim vapi, punjana vagunanvita, vimudo nanapashanti, pashanti jnana chakshusha. The foolish, the mudhas, as Krishna says, those who are in the mode of ignorance, they don't understand how the living entity quits his body. Nor do they understand what kind of body the soul enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But those whose eyes are trained with knowledge can see all this clearly. In other words, unless we understand the eternality of the soul, we're completely in ignorance. So all these people, all these so-called leaders and authorities in every field, they're all in ignorance because they don't know about the soul. Just like there's a class of people called the eugenics. Their idea is that there's too much population in the world and we have to get rid of most of the people. That will protect the climate. That will protect the environment. In other words, the people are the problem. And if we get rid of the people, we can have a nice environment for the few people that are left. They don't realize you can't get rid of the people. You may take care of their body temporarily, but they'll come back in another body according to their karma. No one dies. And by this attempt to play God, one will become implicated and have to suffer the reactions. But people don't know that the living entity, how the living entity quits his body. They don't know that the actual body doesn't die because the body is already dead. And something that's dead can't die. So the body can't die. It's just like if you have a puppet, you're playing with a puppet, someone's playing a drama for the children with a puppet, and then the person takes the puppet, his hand out of the puppet, and then they puts the puppet down on the ground, and everyone starts crowding around the puppet and thinking, I think the puppet had a heart attack. They're trying to revive the puppet. Puppet, please come back. We love you. Don't go. And then they pick up the puppet, put it into a little box, and take it to puppet cemetery. Because the puppet appears to be dead. But the puppet didn't die because the puppet was never alive. It only appeared to be alive because someone had his hand in the puppet and was playing with it. So this body is already dead. It only appears to be alive because the soul is within the body and it's playing around with it with the help of the super soul. But people don't know that. Therefore, they're considered to be in ignorance. And Te Vidu Swartakatim Vishnu, they don't know what the goal of the soul is, because they don't know that they're a soul. Therefore, all they can do is look into the mirror and see their body and think, what does my body want? The body says, I want to eat, I want to sleep, I want to mate, and I want to defend. And we think, yeah, I am the body. That's what I want to do too. That's the whole goal of life. Therefore, most of our information coming from modern society, Nayadvichas Chitra Padam Hayarya Sho, Ligat Paritam Paragriha Karichit, Tadvaya Samtirtu Shanti Manasa, Namanti Rishikshaya. Those words don't glorify the all-good personality of Godhead, whose glory is going to once purify the entire universe, is said to be a place of pilgrimage for the crows. The all-perfect persons, they don't take any pleasure there because they're residents of the transcendental abode. In other words, 99.99% of modern society is for the crows. And just like you're going down regularly to the subway. So the subway is like a dungeon. It's a subterranean, hellish place where people are being tortured. There's no air. They're forced to wear these masks. So even there's no air to breathe, practically speaking, but whatever little air is, they're not even allowed to breathe that. And it's dark, it's noisy, and it's very uncomfortable. People are just rushing in anxiety, going from place to place. And they think that that's life, that's progress, that they're proud. You see people walking around with these caps. New York City. They're proud they're living in hell. They're enjoying it. They enjoy the noise, the anxiety, the horrible smells, the lack of air, the utter ignorance of the whole thing. In other words, even in the mode of ignorance, even in hell, Prabhupada said people will try to enjoy. Because they don't know what the modes of nature are. They don't know that when they hear about this agriculture, cows, they think, oh, this is back in the primitive times when people actually used to get their hands dirty. When people they breathed pure air. How disgusting. How revolting. They actually knew how to breathe. They actually had good food. They actually had fresh food. People get sick if they ate fresh food nowadays. They wouldn't know what to do with it. Their body wouldn't know how to handle it. Where's the toxins? There's no taste. My body's not working, I'm not passing gas anymore. Something wrong with the whole situation. It's like I know devotees who live in the city and sometimes they go to the country. And when they go to the country, they can't sleep because there's no noise. They've gotten so used to hearing noise and be in anxiety that when it's too peaceful, they can't sleep. Where's the noise? What's something wrong here? Bang, bang. Ah, what a relief. So this is due to when one develops the mode of ignorance, and one has a taste for the mode of ignorance, and one thinks passion, ignorance are disgusting. Passion and goodness are disgusting. So that's the unfortunate situation of modern society, because from the beginning of their lives, especially nowadays, they've been injected with poisons. As soon as they're born, immediately they're welcomed with needles all throughout their body. Welcome, here's some poison. Get used to it. Enjoy. And then they're grown up, they eat all kinds of nonsense food. Parents don't know how to cook, and the people in the restaurants don't know how to cook either. Just to keep the kids from stopping screaming, they just give them all kinds of cookies and candies. And even when they go to the dentist, because their teeth are all rotten from eating these things, then the dentist gives them a lollipop. You're a good customer. You're a good customer. Come back again. I remember when I grew up, which was when I was a long time ago, you go to the dentist, your teeth had no cavities, he'd find them. He'd paint them into your teeth and then start drilling, just so he could make more money. You go there 1 week and it has 17 cavities. You drill them all. You go a couple of weeks later, you find another 20 cavities. And people are so dull, they never expect that actually they're just being cheated. He's a dentist, he's been licensed. He must know what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. He's been trained up how to drill as many teeth as possible. Just like they have this process now, it's called implants, where they take your real teeth out and they put in a metal tooth. Who needs a real tooth when you can get a metal one that will last beyond your body? When your body dissolves into nothing, the tooth will be there, so that people can come and honor your tooth. But 90% of the implants fail. But because of propaganda, because the dental and medical industry is able to put out all kinds of false advertisements, therefore people think maybe it works. Maybe it's better than my real teeth. Even one lady had all her teeth replaced. Huge amount of money. But then they gave her these dental implants that didn't work. So she spent the last 30 years suffering. Because she had faith, and people have no idea how the body works. They have no idea what the modes of nature are. They don't know anything. They're just given some false position. And people are trained up from their childhood to respect them and appreciate them and honor them and believe that they actually know something. Of course, they may know something. There may be some advances in some ways. But ultimately, when you get to the bottom line, you never go to a dentist and ask about your diet. Maybe nowadays some holistic dentist, because people just think teeth come out of nowhere. It has nothing to do with what you're eating. People they don't even think, I'm eating something. Part of it, hopefully, will become part of my body. And if I'm eating nonsense, then my body will become nonsense. And my whole diet is puff candies or something. My whole diet is, what do they call that? Cotton candy. Then after some time, my body will be made out of cotton candy. And when my teeth fall out, my hair, everything falls out, I can't move. What do we blame it on? There's some germ in the air. Such an innocent person like me, somehow or another got sick. I must go and surrender it to the medical industry, who knows everything. And if anything goes wrong, they'll just replace it. replace my stomach, replace my lungs, replace my heart, replace my brain. Just replace the whole thing. And it'll last much longer than this body that came out of nothing. So this is all called ignorance. Kali Yuga's so-called learned people are actually Maya Pritagyanas. They seem to have knowledge, but actually their real knowledge has been taken away by ignorance. They can't understand that they're eternal souls. They can't understand that there's a God. And therefore, everything they're doing, they strive in the wrong direction. So that's why the result is just fear. People have been so much trained up that their body, even the devotees sometimes, aspiring devotees, are absorbed in this bodily concept of life, and they're afraid that they're going to die. They can't believe it. I've been chanting my rounds every day, and still I have to die. Still I have to leave this body. This is not proper. Please protect. Krishna is not going to protect me from death. I must take shelter of the medical industry. They'll protect me from death. Although people don't know that the professional industry, which has the least longevity, the shortest lifespan, is the medical profession. People who are in the medical profession, they have the shortest life expectancy. That and the airplane pilots. And nowadays, not only the airplane pilots, but the people in the airplanes flying around these planes probably have a decreased life expectancy. So, this idea of going back to the basics, having farmland and cows, and living off the land, and not depending upon, hopefully the government's going to send us a check, because we're going to be unemployed soon, there won't be any money, and we have no money. We have to stand in line for the bread line so they can give us a pack of Rice Krispies for a meal. Begging, please, give me an extra pack of Rice Krispies. Prabhupada gives the example of the donkey. He has this huge load on his back. He can't, he's pulling this heavy load, heavy load of clothes for the washerman. And the washerman puts a carrot in front of him, and he walks 2 steps, and because the carrot's attached in front of him, as he walks 2 steps, the carrot goes 2 steps too. But still, he works the whole day running after the carrot, hoping that finally he's going to get the carrot, and therefore doing hard labor. And at the end of the day, the washerman takes the load of laundry off the ass's back, and he allows the ass to put his head down and eat the grass underneath his feet. And the ass is thinking, the washerman's so kind, he's supplying me with food. It's worth all the hard labor. People don't know they could grow things right underneath their feet. Maybe not here, maybe underneath the subway station you can grow things. People don't know they could get what they actually working so hard for just by throwing a few seeds in the ground, taking out a few weeds, and putting a little water on it. You can get everything you need. You don't have to work so hard to get even the basic necessities of life. But because everything has become so complicated, so divorced from reality, people actually feel dependent on the modern leaders of society for their existence. They don't think they're dependent on God. They think they're dependent on these modern leaders. If one modern leader gets up on the wrong side of the bed, then half the population disappears because he's in a bad mood. And that this has all been, it's all the result of people's sinful activities, that they can't understand the value of simple living. Simple living doesn't mean to live in poverty. Nana Maharaj doesn't live in poverty. The residents of Vrindavan are not in poverty. They're living very opulent lives, but they're depending on the cow and the land. They don't need a factory. They don't need mass transportation. They don't have to get a car to go to the store. Whatever they need is being provided by nature. And if there is some transportation, they're not in a hurry. There's no new iPhone that has to be delivered to you immediately, or else you're feel deprived. My mother didn't love me. She didn't give me a new iPhone this year. Therefore, I feel inferior to everyone else. Which one do you have? I have 10. Oh, I'm so sorry. No one loves you. Do you actually use that thing? No, I'm too embarrassed. I can't call my friends on this phone. They might realize it's a 10 and they have a 12. I feel inferior. So people's understanding of reality has been so far removed from what is reality. And they become so much dependent on people who actually don't have their interests at heart, who actually feel that the people they're dealing with are burdens. Indeed, they are burdens. Just trying to keep them entertained with sports and movies and all kinds of things, just to keep them entertained so they don't get disturbed and wreck everything. Instead, at least in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, we have information of what actually is reality. That to maintain this body, we should do it very nicely. We should do it in a healthy way, which depends upon learning how to breathe, for instance. It says, according to Chinese medicine and Ayurveda, 90% of our energy comes from breathing. People don't know how to breathe. And when you're in fear and anxiety, then your breathing slows down and practically stops. So people have been so much put into fear, they're hardly even breathing, and there's hardly any air to breathe. And then they get sick, and they blame it on some virus or something, but actually they don't see that they're not eating properly, they're not sleeping properly, they're not breathing properly, they're not doing anything properly, they're doing everything contrary to the laws of nature, and they expect to be ecstatically healthy. It's like you have a car, you don't put gas in it, you put pop soda in it. You put Coca-Cola. Of course, nowadays Coca-Cola has different uses. They use Pepsi-Cola and Coca-Cola in India for spraying the fields against the bugs. Because there's so much insecticide in Coca-Cola nowadays that there's no reason to buy expensive insecticides or pesticides in India. You just buy Coca-Cola. Because the water is so contaminated that when you spray the fields with Coca-Cola, all the bugs die. And you could do that. You could take a bottle of Coca-Cola, they've done that, and you could put a nail in it. And after a week, the nail will disappear. So you drink enough Coca-Cola, you'll disappear too. All in the name of progress. So people don't know that healthy food, because nowadays to get healthy food, you have to work, you have to have 2 jobs to buy organic food that's shipped in from somewhere else. You have to work 2 jobs so you can get a good carrot. People never thought that if I move into the country, I can get a lot of good carrots. And I wouldn't have to work 80 hours a week to get it. But we've been so weakened, so bewildered by the modern society, we think that we're dependent on it, rather than depending on sacrifice ultimately, because from sacrifice will come rain, and when rain is properly supplied, not too much, not too little, then it's very easy to grow food. And sacrifice depends upon people actually doing their duty. And doing their duty means you can't kill the cows. It's not part of one's duty. And practically every single occupation nowadays depends upon killing animals, especially cows and bulls. So it's not our duty to do that, to kill the animals. It's not our duty to dumb people down by giving them all kinds of nonsense philosophy and history, that we all came out of the apes, and that the highest realizations come from Freud and Darwin. The deepest insights in reality comes from Freud and Darwin, and maybe Karl Marx. And that without knowing these philosophies, then somehow or another you'll actually there's some chance that you're becoming affected by some cultist religion, like the Hare Krishna movement. You may fall victim into thinking you're eternal. And the goal of life is to become eternal and full of bliss and knowledge. How horrible. How does that contribute to the gross national product? It's backwards, it's barbaric, it's primitive. It's a threat to our nation. So we should at least have enough intelligence ourselves, although we may not be able to become farmers immediately, but we should at least understand the problems we're not living in the land of the free and the brave. We're not in the most advanced civilization that ever existed. We're not in some kind of progression that after human beings they'll be so kind as they'll make us into robots. Then our real destiny will be fulfilled. That we'll live in a computer program forever. So this is all ignorance. And we should at least know that so that we can make as much as possible the proper choices, and at least in the midst of this problematic situation where we're not able to get directly food ourselves or produce it, and we're implicated in a very hellish situation, then at least we should chant Hare Krishna, try to understand things properly, so that we call out to Radha and Krishna, we take shelter of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and understand we don't have a choice. We're in a very difficult situation, and only they can help us in this very unpleasant, confusing, and difficult situation. Only they can actually help us and give us the intelligence so that we can gradually understand what our part personally we should play, so that we can actually help ourselves and help others too. Other than that, this whole society doesn't have a very long duration. Every society that has become prominent in the world thought they were going to last forever. The Romans lasted for some hundreds of years. The Greeks lasted for some hundreds of years. Everyone just lasts for some years, and then they disappear. America and this Western civilization has only lasted for a very short period of time. And still they think somehow or another, what is that, America first? First amongst what? It's like you have dinosaurs, and you have the biggest, best dinosaur. Dinosaur first. First amongst what? First amongst the whole world, which is full of bewildered, ignorant people who are being misdirected by bigger, foolish, ignorant people, and simply causing their own destruction. Solving problems and creating more problems than they're solving by solving the problems. And thinking they're making progress. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions or comments? That was an encouraging class, by the way. Yes. dentist, a devotee. Well, I mean, we have to have some occupation. We should understand, though, that these occupations are not the primary occupations. We may be interested in such an occupation. It may provide us with the means of livelihood. We may have the talent and the intelligence to do it, but we should understand that it may not be the highest occupation that's possible. Although if we have under the circumstances, if we cannot find some alternative, which would be a little bit more sattvic, then the devotee could take it up, but then they have to give some proportion of their income to spreading Krishna consciousness. Not that they rack up the teeth and they live in a palace. Their palace is built on rotten teeth. So it's possible a devotee can do any occupation which is not sinful, directly sinful, but it may not be the best for our consciousness. Looking into people's mouths, looking into their rotten teeth, which is based on eating dead animals, smelling them all day long, and trying to help them so they can eat more dead animals. But due to this false prestige that society is giving people, therefore they think I'm a very prestigious occupation, filling people's rotten teeth so they can eat rotten animals. So some reality should be there. Even if we have it, we should understand there may be we should participate in giving the results of the work to doing something which will change society for the better. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I was just thinking, we're close to coming to the 10-year anniversary of the Harinam. March 25th, 2012 was when Ramanuja Prabhu began it. Almost 10 years now. And I'm just thinking, I've been a part of it now for almost 7 years. And, we go out every day and we're chanting and thousands of people are going by, but how can we start to perceive the effect? Because it just seems like not many people are coming by.
Well, we should chant better. Then we'll feel some effect for ourselves. We're worried about everyone else. What about ourselves? That Krishna will take care of. But if we become purified, then the effect will increase, for ourselves at least, and probably others also. Krishna will tell them to come. We're not the doer. People are passing by. They're passing by because Krishna tells them to pass by the Harinam, so they're getting some benefit as much as they deserve. So we should get the best benefit. That's what we should perceive. And if we're questioning whether the people are getting the benefit or not, maybe that we should work on our benefit a little bit more. Then we'll understand what the benefit is. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj. I want to ask two things. First is, do you think that as a society, devotees now, they have to put more endeavors and more energy into creating places outside of the cities so that they can live more independently?
I mean, how can you say no? Do I think? I think we'll be forced to do it eventually because we're so dull. Unless we're forced to do something, we won't do it. We're so accustomed. We're so much enamored by modern civilization. We're so much a product of it. Our consciousness is so much absorbed in it that we'll have to be forced to do it before we actually take it seriously. And not only that, but sometimes the devotees, they stop farm communities or whatever, and they take it as some kind of, vacation home. They live in the country, and they don't till the land, they don't learn how to use the oxen, they don't know how to milk the cow, they don't make their homes out of sustainable material. No, they move there and they want all the amenities of life. Just like in Radhadesh, they built a cow, a barn for the cow. And then they asked, do you need Wi-Fi? And the devotees at that time said no. And then a week later or so, they decided they need Wi-Fi. So they had to dig up the whole thing in order to get a Wi-Fi out to the cow, where the cows are. Because after all, the cows would have to, they were all on Facebook and they had to, it was urgent. The cows tell them how nice the barn was. So we're addicted to these things. We can't live without them because we're just accustomed to it. But when the time comes, then we'll have to be forced to become accustomed to something else. Something a little bit more conducive to Krishna consciousness, that's all. So right now, there's a horrible pandemic, whatever it is going on around the world, people are on it, but actually it's all for our purification. Get rid of this addiction to modern society and all its technology and industrialization and everything else. We're going to be forced to go cold turkey on. And then, of course, when there's nothing to eat, then of course everyone gets inspired to go out into the country and grow something. And then claim ourselves we're enlightened beings. We figured out what the Bhagavatam said. Somehow or another, the Bhagavatam has such profound wisdom about how we're all depending on food. And wow, I read that millions of times, but now I understand it. So it takes some experience. Yes.
I also wanted to ask, like nowadays many people I'm hearing they try to avoid grains in their diet. Like they are saying there is some problem with it, like gluten or whatever.
Yeah, they never blame their own digestion, all the nonsense that they're eating, all their anxiety they're put under, all their lack of regulation, which is all causing all kinds of irregulation of the digestive system at every level. And they blame it on something. Bad grain. Bad boy. Because they don't know how they don't know what to eat, they don't know what not to eat, they don't know how to eat, they don't know how to chew their food. They're not even thinking about what they're eating when they're eating, about what they're eating. They're thinking about something else. And then they blame it on the food rather than the digestion and their own personal problems that they have, how to properly live and eat. But sometimes grain, if you don't have the proper digestive power, then you have to eat what you can digest, or else it becomes poison. Going to Ayurveda, food is what you can digest, poison is what you can't digest, and medicine is what helps you digest food. So one has to be conscious of what's digestible. And if one has some good association, some good advice from learned persons, then one may learn how to increase one's digestive power, at least balance it, so that one can eat properly according to one's time, place, one's constitution, according to the season, one's age. Then one can find the proper food, eat it and digest it, and become healthy. All right. Thank you very much. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande.